Hey everyone! Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to try and teach how I draw faces. I'll put a few examples up on the screen of some drawings I've done of people's faces. Hopefully the editing in this doesn't kill me because I'm still learning how to edit videos. I tried to edit a Galentine's video. Ignore the cat in the background. He's meowing. I don't know if you can see him. Hopefully I make sense when I'm talking about drawing faces. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Anyways, let's get into it. Alright, this is my sketchbook. She has some personalized stickers and things I love on her. It's also a moleskin sketchbook. I love this sketchbook so much. But what we're using today, we're using this pencil from Mr. Pen in 0.9, and I would highly recommend buying these. They're on Amazon, really good pencils. I'm also using this eraser that I most definitely found in a classroom somewhere, but it's okay. If it works, it works. Now I'm just scrolling through Pinterest to try and find someone's face to sketch, and I found this girl. She's very pretty, but she's most definitely AI. And I think we should turn her into a sketch so she can be real art instead of AI, because in my personal opinion, I don't think AI is art. Now that I've chosen the pages of where I want to start sketching, I have to start mapping out where I want the drawing to be on the page. So I just draw a circle of where I want their head to be when I draw it. And I'm looking at my reference picture, and her face is not fully forward and not fully to the side. She's more at a 3/4 sort of angle. So I'd have to draw her eyes different sizes. Usually when I start sketching someone's face, I always like to start with the most interesting part, and usually the most interesting part of their face is their eyes to me. So I usually like to start with the eyes, and I find that a lot of artists will start with the face shape first before the eyes, and I personally did used to do that, and it would always leave my portrait looking not like the reference picture, or the face looking a little too small or a little too big, just looking off. I'm not too sure how I learned to start drawing the facial features before the facial shape first, but once I learned that, it was literally a blessing. It helped my art so much. I can't stress enough how much you should draw the facial features before the face shape. I know you can't see much of what I'm doing right now because my hand is blocking what I'm doing, but I'm putting all the little details in her eye, and I think that when you're doing little sketches like this, in my personal opinion, I don't like to make things too detailed if they don't need to be. Like, if it's not a close-up of her eye, I'm not going to make her eye too detailed. I'm just going to give a general idea of detail in her eye, but not so much that it's so realistic. See that problem in a lot of sketches that I used to do, where I would over detail certain parts, and it would just, like, the nose would be way too detailed, but then the eyebrows would just be a block, or the lips would be way too detailed and the eyes would not be detailed, and it would just look off. So I try not to add too much detail into any of my sketches unless I'm deliberately trying to make photorealistic drawings or sketches. Now that I've finished my first eye, I like to map out where the rest of the features will be and shape them around that one eye. This is why, in my personal opinion, you can't draw the shape of the face first, because then you have to map the facial features around the shape rather than the face itself. By starting with drawing one eye, that helps me map out where the eyebrows and the other eye should be and how that lines up and how the nose lines up. And then once I'm done with all the facial features, then I figure out the face shape, the hair, the accessories, etc. I then usually start with the next eye, but today I felt like doing the nose because that was the most interesting part next for me. You can't see what I'm doing through my hand, but I usually start with the nostril and then I shape around with the edges of the nose, then the bridge of the nose, and then I add shading to it too. And sometimes I even like to map out where the bridge or curve of the nose will be, which is what that little line above my tip of my nose is. Now I'm just adding some shading to the nose, and how I usually shade is I like to do what is called hatching, which is just straight lines over and over, either diagonal, horizontally, or vertically. It doesn't matter which way. But there is hatching and cross hatching, and I do both in this sketch, I believe. And cross hatching is when those lines cross over each other, which you could imagine from the name, but I prefer hatching because I like it more. I'm now working on the eyebrow. I'm doing these kind of out of order, but it also doesn't matter what order you do because it is art is subjective and you can start sketching however you'd like. But I did the upper eyebrow and then now I'm doing the other eye. I plotted it out like that because I wanted the eyebrow to not be too high but also not be too low. And in the sketch, her eyebrow connects to the side of her face. There's no space between the end of her eyebrow and the side of her face, and so does her eye. The space in between her eye and her eyebrow on the side of her face are both connected to all three. So I thought that if I started at the top and worked my way down to the bottom, it would all work. And I'm doing the same thing that I did with the other eye with this eye by not adding too much detail to make it extremely realistic. I'm now just starting to erase my circle because you never want to keep that circle because then you'll see it in the face, and you can if you think you like the look of it, but I personally do not like the look of the circle. I'm also erasing my lines for where the mouth should be, but it's very faintly there. You can barely see it on video, but in person I can see it, I promise. The next most interesting part to me is her lips. So I start sketching out the lips and I start with the Cupid's bow at the top, and then I work my way down the sides into the opening of the mouth, and I only work one lip at a time. In doing lips, I find it really challenging to try and get lips drawn at a certain angle, like how her face is at a 3/4 angle. It's hard for me to try and draw lips like that. So I had to redo the bottom a couple of times until I ended up liking it and settling for what I had drawn. Now I know this sketch looks rough right now, and this is truly one of those trust the process moments because whenever I'm drawing someone's face or a portrait, I always draw it like this, with the face first and then the shape of the face, which always makes me question whether or not I should finish it because I really have a bad habit of doing a drawing or a sketch, and if I don't like it, I'll scrap it. But you really have to just trust the process. I'm shading the lips now, and I'm not really putting much detail into the shading, just a couple scribbles, just because her lips are pink and they're obviously darker than her actual skin tone. I'm just adding some more details into the eye, but this is what we have right now, and I'm erasing more of the circle because I'm starting to work on that side of the face now, and I smudged it a little bit, so we're just going to erase that too. Okay, I'm starting her second eyebrow now, and back to what I was saying about the trust the process, I think that if you are starting to not like your sketch, please continue to keep sketching. I know it could be hard to trust the process because I know I experience it all the time whenever I'm drawing, but please just stick it through because in the end you could end up liking it. Like right now in this moment, I'm not liking how the sketch is looking, but I continue on, and by the end, I really like it. How I map out my eyebrows is I usually draw the little front hairs and then I draw the shape of the eyebrow. I do two different ways of sketching out eyebrows. I either do this one where I box it out, or how I did my first eyebrow where I just draw the hairs and hope for the best. The boxing it out is a much better method of how to shape your eyebrows because it really gives you the shape that you want because you've drawn out a guide for you to follow. But I'm just adding more hairs to the eyebrows to make sure they match because in the picture her eyebrows are pretty symmetrical, but I'm just now adding more shading. And I have said this earlier in the video, but I do not like smudge shading is what I like to call it. And I know I'm smudging my lines, but I only do that when I think the lines are too harsh, but you can still see the lines in the drawing. You can still tell it's being shaded with lines. We've come to the part in the sketch where the face is done, and now it's time to do the face shape. In this sketch, I started with the line that we had previously talked about with the eyebrow connecting to the eye, and I just draw her cheek, and then I start with her forehead. And I'm just mapping out where her forehead is, and I'm drawing a line down straight because that's where her hair cuts off the side of her face where you cannot see her ears. And now I'm looking at my reference trying to figure out her jawline and her chin. I had a hard time with her chin because it looked off, or it looked too to the side, or it looked too sharp, and I didn't like it. This isn't the chin that I settled on, but I'm starting to notice how the face is coming together now that I've done the face shape. I'm starting to trust my drawing more, and I'm starting to like it a little bit more and more, the more facial structure that I draw out. I am now starting to map out where I want the hair to fall on her shoulder based on the picture, and I'm doing her neck and all the details that are in her neck from the reference picture. And I'm also adding some shading under her jaw too, because her jaw under it is a different color than her main face. When I do portraits, I like to add a lot of random shading, or even if it isn't needed. I'm adding shading on her cheeks for her blush, and I'm adding some on her forehead, even though there isn't much shading to be had on her forehead. I just like it to not just be blank, if that makes sense. I noticed that she has some freckles, so I'm just adding those in. And how I do freckles is I just lightly tap around the paper with my lead, and I try not to do too harsh of dots, because in the picture her freckles are very faint, but she has some dark moles too. I'm just darkening the lashes here because I noticed that her eyes were my main problem, because this whole sketch I was trying to figure out what the issue was, and I had a problem with the eyes. Now I'm mapping out where the shadows of her hair are landing on her forehead and where her hair falls on her face. I also like to map out her scalp and where her part starts too, but I'm just being sporadic, to be honest with you, because I'm working on the hair and then I'm working on the clip and then I go back to the hair. But right now I'm working on the clip that she has in her hair, and I'm not putting too much detail into it. I'm just sketching out the general shape, and I think that got the job done, honestly. Now I'm mapping out the outline of her hair and where the part starts and where the shape of it ends, because you don't want to make too big of a shape of hair unless it's like that in the picture, which hers is not. She has very natural straight hair, and it's not too full, so you don't want to make it look too full because then it will look just off. I started working on her shoulder, but I always have a problem with drawing shoulders. I just can't figure out how to do it for some reason. Hopefully I learn one day, but I ended up just scrapping it, which is okay because I'm trying to teach people how I personally draw faces, not shoulders. So this is what the sketch is looking like so far, with her hair and all her features and outlining mapped out. But I'm now just adding some final touches to her face, like adding some more shading, and I fixed her eyes so they're more symmetrical, I think, by adding corners to the ends, because I realized when I started looking at it more that I hadn't added the corners of the eyes on the inner side, so I did do that. Here I am again, still trying to figure out how to make this shoulder look good, and I'm just getting frustrated at this point with the shoulder, but I'm over it. I'm not worried about the shoulder anymore. I'm now worrying about the highlights in her hair, which, as I said earlier, I don't put too much detail into because I don't think that it really needs it for this sketch, but this is just a little quick sketch, not too much, not too crazy. I just draw these highlights by just drawing lines, and I make some lines darker than the others, some of them are lighter. I smudge it out just a little bit so the lines aren't too harsh, but that's mostly just how I did the hair. I'm smudging the lines now, as you can see, so it's not too harsh, and I'm also adding some darker, thick strands so you can tell where the highlights are in her hair. And I'm just now doing the same to the other side. I don't have to worry about adding a shine to her hair because there is no shine really in the picture, but usually that is something that you have to worry about, is adding a shine in your sketch to her hair. We are finally wrapping up this drawing. We are finally at the end. Now that you like the sketch and you think everything is done, all you have left to do is just sign it. And my signature is just cute and simple, and we're done. All of the work, all the trust the process, I think the reference and the sketch do look similar, but not an exact copy. But I still really love my sketch. Okay, I just finished the drawing. It looks like the reference, but not really. Like, it looks like her sister. It doesn't look like, I don't know, maybe I'm just too critical on myself, but that's the finished drawing. We're not gonna talk about the shoulder. Anyways, this is the drawing. We're done. I do have a lot to improve on because I was kind of in a rush because I didn't want to like take too long drawing. It's okay though, because we're making the world a better place because we're taking AI and making real art. I hope that wasn't hard to understand or hard to follow. If you made it this far, I want to thank you for watching. It means a lot. Hopefully I can do one of these videos again and not be so sporadic and organized is the word I'm looking for. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I love you all. You are so loved. And yeah, thank you for watching.